this particular car. We are currently filming some flybys. The car is nowhere to be seen. You may have seen some of the clips from this area. And I'm holding the key to the DB11. Good morning guys, welcome back to another video and welcome to our final morning here in Mallorca. The time is 7:30 because over the last 48 hours I've been filming non-stop with Ollie, Alex and the two DB11s that we have got, and I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to do with the footage. So we've got a 7.5 hour ferry today and I'm going to edit and piece together some of the footage. But today, this morning, I want to talk about why I love the Aston Martin DB11. Now I'm still under embargo about talking about the driving impressions of how this particular car drives, the V8 powered DB11. I've now put enough miles over the weekend on for me to gain an understanding of its characteristics, but I've put so many miles on the V12 version that I'm going to combine the two and create this list as to why the DB11 is on the list of cars that I would love to own one day. So we're starting with the back of the car. And number one is the new clear taillight option on DB11s. It accentuates the rear, which for most people is the bit that they just can't get their head around in terms of the looks of this thing, but the clear taillights make this car look even more beautiful. And just like magic, on the island of Mallorca, you turn out of the hotel and you are on beautiful mountain coastal roads. And I'd like to quickly apologise for the audio level of quality because I don't think I've got enough memory on my video camera to record the audio because I am about 10% through this video. But let's continue on to number two, which is the road presence of the DB11. The size of this car might look daunting, but as soon as you get behind the wheel of it, everything shrinks up and you're in control of the steering wheel and you feel like you are in a little go-kart. Having said that, that might be something to do with the fact that I was so used to driving my AMG GTS, which had the world's longest never-ending bonnet in front of me. But there's something about driving this car on these roads that even though you feel like you are covering pretty much the entirety of the lane, you're in control of something that's still quite controllable. If that doesn't make sense, the road presence, the size of this thing, just means that when you arrive or wherever you are going, people are looking. It looks aggressive on the road. I've had Alex following me in the wing mirror pretty much this entire trip, and that black car looks so good and mean from the front. As much as it feels like an Aston Martin to drive, it certainly looks like one on the road as well. And when you're spending over £150,000 on a car, you kind of want that from a brand. Next one on the list is, of course, my favourite, the exhaust system, but the sound of this car in particular. This is the V8 powered DB11 and this comes with the AMG 4-litre bi-turbo engine that I had in my AMG GTS, and I was nervous that it was going to sound like an AMG car. Not that that's a bad thing, no one's ever complained about the sound of an AMG car, but being an Aston Martin, it has a certain sound that it needs to keep up with for its brothers and sisters within the product line. And I'm amazingly surprised to say that this car still has a tinge of AMG to it, but most of it is Aston Martin. Aston Martin get the engine block, retune pretty much everything, has their own computer system, exhaust system, and they basically make it their own. So when you flick it into sport, you get a nice rumble to it, but rattling through the list, we now move on to this particular example because it is a very, very special car and specification. When I saw the two cars lined up next to each other, the black looked so menacing, and the white, I wasn't really taken aback by the white with the black roof. It did remind me of my Lamborghini Bicolore because it is exactly the same colour combination, but it was when I opened the door to this car that I realised how special it was. Aston Martins are known for being classy, elegant and quintessentially British, which that looks exactly that. But then when I opened the door, it's as though this car is paying homage to the original Lamborghini Aventador Tron that arrived in London in purple chrome with orange Tron lines. This interior is everything purple and orange stitching. Let's talk about this car being a future classic, and I know that may sound weird because everyone's trying to predict what the next future classic is going to be, and you might look at this car and look at its depreciation over the last 6 months and think this is never going to be a future classic, but bear with me because this Aston Martin is £144,000. This is the V8 powered one. You can get the DB11 for £156,000 plus options. These cars were once trading over £200,000 on Auto Trader because everyone saw the potential in them. There were so many on the market that they essentially flooded the market and dropped the price. You can now buy a V12 DB11 for £140,000. This car is the start of the new era for Aston Martin, which is why I believe this is going to be a modern classic. Look at the DB4, look at the DB5s, and are seen now today as the origin of the Aston Martin brand. Combining with AMG is surely the best thing Aston Martin could ever do. German engineering and insane performance, fitted into a car that looks so beautiful with interior that is as exquisite as this is. That is the best collaboration, and DB11 is the first car in this collaboration. However long this goes on for, this being the first of the new Aston Martin generation, that to me screams future classic. Pre-DB11 cars had the same Aston Martin design language. The Aston Martin, the DB9, the Vantage, they all looked incredibly similar, all the way down to the interior buttons. Whereas the DB11 was the first car that Aston Martin produced that looked a little different, and I was the first one to complain about the rear of the car. As soon as I saw the front, I was like, I love it. From this angle, it is beautiful, just like all other Aston Martins. Pre-DB11, all I kept saying to people was Aston Martins shouldn't have a first gear. Neutral is all they need because you can rev it, because they sounded beautiful and they looked beautiful. You wanted it as a garden piece like this. We're in someone's garden right now and it looks beautiful. But the rear of this car definitely split opinions, and every single time I post pictures of this car, for me, I personally love it, and I've completely come round to the fact that this car looks completely futuristic. And the one thing that Aston Martin have told me is that now all of the new models are going to have their own design, but with the similar Aston Martin language. So you will be able to differentiate between this, the new Vanquish, the new Vantage, the DBX obviously, but all of the new Aston Martin models are going to be looking slightly different, this being the first one of that new motto. We can't go through such an extensive list of things I love about a car and not talk about efficiency, and this car is the epitome of performance with efficiency. I shot a video with the V12, a 5.2 litre twin turbo V12, and we picked it up at Gaydon, which is south of Birmingham, and drove it to Inverness over 10 hours, but we drove it on 1 tank of fuel from a V12. And I fully am aware that that is not how you're supposed to drive a V12 Aston Martin. You want to hoon it, but at the same time, Aston Martin claim this is the perfect GT car, and you can't have a GT car without efficiency, because if you did, you wouldn't want to go on long distance drives because you'd be forever stopping at a petrol station. So this car, producing 600 brake horsepower from the V12 and over 500 brake horsepower from the V8, but still having so much efficiency, means that you can drive from London to Monaco and probably only have to stop once. And lastly, it is arguably the best daily driver. And yeah, you'd expect so for £150,000, but the ease of use, how we have been able to drive this around the island, an island that I've never driven on before, around the Barcelona town. It is so easy to drive. The steering is super light in GT mode. And to be honest, we were even able to fit Ollie's suitcase in the boot of it. So head over to Ollie's vlog because that was actually quite interesting, but it fit absolutely perfect. and it gets loads of attention everywhere it goes. It is a beautiful car, so classy. It is something that I would love to drive and put tons and tons of miles on my own car. Rather than keep borrowing them from Aston Martin, one day I would like to own a DB11 or a variant of the new Aston Martin feature with the AMG collaboration. Thank you for watching. I will see you soon. Please give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll catch you in a bit. Cheers, guys. One thing that isn't so good about this particular car, we are currently filming some flybys. The car is nowhere to be seen. You may have seen some of the clips. And I'm holding the key to the DB11. Somewhere down there is Alex driving the DB11.
Cảm ơn các bạn đã theo dõi. Các bạn hãy bấm like, comment và hãy bấm nút đăng ký để ủng hộ cho kênh mình nha.